man. We praise you. And Will over there too. I see him over there. Amen. Keep your strength. Keep your strength. Praise God. Brothers to death, and a father his child. Children will rebelled against their parents and have them put to death. All men will hate you because of me, but he who stands firm to the end will be saved. Robert Fuller was found last week hanging on a tree in that city. Well, God, we just pray, Father, that's not what we think, and Father, we're sad, even if it's what they say. We just hope and pray now as we continue to pray for the family, that, oh Father, they'll get justice. We'll be able to find out exactly what has taken place. And even on top of that, Father, a young man in Atlanta, coming out of a fast food restaurant, oh God, was shot and killed. So we know, Father. Father, we just pray, Father, because the beat goes on. And for that, Father, it troubles us, breaks our hearts, crushes our spirit. Oh God, we are here as long as we can, as long as there's breath in our body, Father, a song on our lips and a hand clap, Father. We are going to keep on praying and keep on shouting. Father, we're going to keep on protesting. We're going to keep on holding people's feet to the fire, Father. We're not going to give up, but we're not going to give up. And all that we say and all that we do, oh God, we do it in the name of Christ Jesus. We pray. Amen. I tell you, saints, there's always something going on. Not too much good news, just news. We're required to preach the word in season and out of season, the good along with the bad. Just wanted to mention to you, some of y'all's president got holy and decided not to have his Republican celebration rally in Oklahoma on Juneteenth. He has rescheduled that gathering. And so we think that even some of the African Americans, Trump supporters, probably called him and said, you can't do it on Juneteenth. You just can't do that, President. So we see that he has rescheduled it. And I just wanted to remind some of us what Juneteenth was. Of course, we know that the slavery, the Emancipation Proclamation was pronounced by Abraham Lincoln, I believe, in 1863. However, we didn't get the word until 1865. And General Granger brought the word to the people in Galveston, Texas. And then they took that particular Juneteenth day and made it a celebration time of our freedom, celebration of time for us to be treated just like everybody else. So we know that in Galveston, Texas, the way they celebrated, that they have flags from all the different nations of Africa. And they present those flags and reminding people of where we came from and how we got over. And they celebrate that day, a day of fellowship, a day of coming together, but then reminded us the difficult time that we had. So for that, we give God the glory. That was Juneteenth, and of course we'll be celebrating it next week. What is that, on Friday or Saturday? On a Saturday, amen. Let me get it right. So we'll be having that grand time without any drama. Amen? Amen. So in our lesson today, Jesus is giving direction and hope to his disciples and letting them know the kind of things that's going to happen to him, those who preach his word, and those who proclaim that we are all God's children. And I took that lesson just to kind of to help us out. And along with that, it just sort of jogged my mind when I was thinking about the Juneteenth. And then I also was thinking about the situation, the burning of Greenwood, Oklahoma. And it was just a bright side, in a sense, to tell us what we were about. This is what we were about. We didn't want to be treated any different from everybody else, but we knew if we made the playing field even, that we could also pursue. We could also have businesses. We could also have banks. We could also manage our affairs. And what happened to us in Greenwood, Oklahoma, it says after the Civil War, I'm going to read this to you because it's so important. And for those of you that don't remember, it should refresh in your mind. Some people believe that somehow we just can't manage without other folk leading the way for us. But we found out that after the Civil War, African Americans settled in Oklahoma because of employment opportunities from the oil fields. Around 1908, the community of Greenwood in Tulsa, Oklahoma was established. I know what Tulsa is. My mother and my father are both from that particular area. My mother was from a little town called Beggs, and my dad was from a place called Slick, Oklahoma. And so many Oklahomans are in California, Texans and Arkansas folk, and Mississippi and Louisiana, are all here in Southern California, or just say California, because they came for a brighter day. But those who stayed at that particular time established themselves. And the Daily Tulsa Star was an African-American owned newspaper. Business owned by African-Americans flourished. The communities were the best. Their schools were excellent. Greenwood was coined the Black Wall Street. However, because of jealousy, because of deceit, because of discrimination, Greenwood was burned to the ground by white racists June 1st, 1921. African American community was subjected to harassment and other discriminatory actions from white folk. And we know that. The gradual escalation of violence toward African American community of Greenwood did not cease. It only escalated. Two black prisoners were lynched by white mobs in 1919. And on May 21st, 1921, African Americans named Dick Rowland was arrested for allegedly assaulting Sarah Page, a white female elevator operator. Now, I don't have to continue with the story per se because you know what happened. You know what was burned down. You know it was false accusations. You know it was jealousy. You know it was discriminatory. You know that all these things were present. And we know that it still happens today. That every time African Americans seem to get a foot up, there's someone to take the foot down. So I just wanted to remind you that, as we know, the struggle is not over. And we just thank God for those people in Greenwood, how they showed us what can be done. And we're thankful for those who have continued to march on in such a way to give God the glory, and the folk aren't going to give up or to give out. I had a couple of other notes I wanted to read to you, but I'm not going to read to you too much today. Folks, we don't want you reading to us, just give us the word. I wanted to mention to you this past week, as I'm sitting around, lying around our home like many of you, practicing staying at home and not going out unless I just have to. Of course, my wife says I just have to go out every day, but it's just something even just to go in the backyard or look out the front door. You just got to appreciate what God has given to us if you just have to just breathe a little fresh air. But I wanted to mention to you that I happened to watch 3 programs this weekend that reminded me of the persecution of the black man, especially the black man. And I didn't have a program that I knew was coming on like many of you. I was just surfing the channels. It's amazing how we have all these channels, including Netflix, and sometimes it's just nothing on. Nothing on. Of course, our local news was sort of like news of nothingness, but I'm not going to get on today. I'm going to press on. Now, one of the programs that I watched was a seminar that was on again, and you see the Spirit of God that were on those folk in Selma, Alabama, along with Dr. Martin Luther King, Abernathy, and all the other freedom fighters that were there, and knowing all the time that they were going to be met with resistance. And in spite of that, they continued to march on. Now, of course, it appears that the only way that black folk really get attention is somebody is going to have to get killed. Somebody's just going to have to get killed. That just seems to be that's just the way that it is. And in this particular case, they were marching across the Edmund Pettus Bridge to commemorate the death of the young man Jimmy Lee Jackson, who was shot there in February. The march was actually March 7, 1965. And they wanted to commemorate his death as he was shot down dead in a restaurant after he had left the march and got a little physical. But just the fact, as I looked at those citizens there in Alabama, many church sisters with their purses and their white gloves and their hats still marching, and the brothers with all that Spirit of God, knowing that something was going to happen, and whatever happened, it was going to be flashing everything on the TV. So we were reminded of the event that happened at the Edmund Pettus Bridge, and we've seen the portrait of Dr. King and John Lewis and others. So just be mindful of the struggle. And then I watched one called "I'm Not Your Negro" by James Baldwin. You remember, some of you remember him. The book was to be a personal account of the lives and the association of three of his closest friends. James Baldwin's friends, and we say closest friends, we were personal friends. Medgar Evers, Malcolm X, and Martin Luther King Jr. And in this production, this documentary, it showed Medgar Evers riding in a car with James Baldwin as they were riding down the city. Within Mississippi, where they were, Medgar Evers? I believe that. Google it up to make sure I got it right. And so it showed that James Baldwin said he was just afraid by even riding in the car. And then he tells us what made the story have so much spirituality and sensitivity, and what hurt him so bad is that Medgar Evers took James Baldwin to the airport. James gets on the plane and he goes to one of the Caribbean islands for a little vacation. While he's on this little vacation, he gets word that Medgar Evers had been shot and killed. And in the documentary, it shows James Baldwin, his heart is broken. And then we move on to him giving one of his lectures. And in the lecture hall was Malcolm X. Malcolm X had a camera and he was taking pictures of James Baldwin giving his presentation. And it just shows the closeness that they had and how they fellowship with each other. And then, once again, when James gets the news of the assassination of Malcolm X, of course his heart is broken tremendously. And then he's in Georgia, and it shows him with Martin Luther King before he's even in Alabama. And it shows that they had a relationship and a fellowship, and it shows how he followed Dr. King and all his enterprises, and it shows those who were around him. And then once again, it just shows how much there was a fellowship among the brothers and the sisters, and how everyone was gathered together to try to get this knee off of our neck. And then finally, saints, we go to the documentary of the Black Panther Party. Of course, you know it was formed by Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seale in Oakland of 1966. Elvis Cleveland comes along a little later. But what they show, and maybe some witnesses here, was the shootout here in Los Angeles on 41st and Central, December 9th, 1969. And it shows that J. Edgar Hoover had identified and put a stamp on the Black Panther Party as public enemy #1. And it shows the shootout. And for many of the citizens of Los Angeles, they remember that time. There were more bullets. They thought they were actually in a war of the shootout. And this particular shootout had happened after Fred Hampton had been assassinated in Chicago 4 days earlier. So I'm just giving you a little pictorial review of the things that I had an opportunity to visualize and look at, and just remember this struggle and how things have been very difficult for us to get to the next level. And this by no way mitigates the struggle that our forefathers went through. That struggle was epic, and you almost can't compare it in the sense of the struggle, but you can compare it in the sense that there seems to be one particular mandate, and that is the destruction of the African American male by any means necessary. So we see that happen. So some would say that where is God in this? Where is the question, or whether or not there is a thing that we can receive from God, something that gives us hope. So I'm not going to discuss all the particulars of that, just to say that there are things happening. There are things happening. And we know that for one thing that climate change is a natural disaster, and they are judgments. They are judgments. And they do intervene in such a way in our lives that the suffering is on the righteous as well as the unrighteous. And we find that if you have an economic meltdown, Christians are also affected just as much as non-Christians. And it is the very same when there is an earthquake. It affects the just and the justice. We must understand that in this particular era, the justice of God and the judgment of God falls on both. God may be saying to the church today, it's time for us to get serious about prayer. It's time for us to get serious about repentance and serious about seeking thy face. We find that we desperately need God in this moment. For I'm reminded when I think about our brothers and sisters through the civil rights cause, and I'm talking about the brothers and sisters in Greenwood, Oklahoma, and even before that, in the times of slavery. It appears that at every opportunity, they took out time to fall on their knees and pray to God. In spite of everything, if anyone would have the right to feel that maybe God wasn't with them, it would be those brothers and sisters who suffered under that yoke of slavery, and that whip of injustice and indignity, and all that they did. It didn't matter. They would pray to God after, or pray to God before the beating, that they'd be able to get through it, and after the beating, thank God that they made it through it. And they would pray to God to give them the strength to press on in spite of all the injustices, the indignity, the hurtfulness, selling of our children, separating our families, denying us opportunity. In spite of that, they pray to God. So I'm thankful today we can look out and we can see something that all of us can honestly say in our hearts and our mind, that we did not expect the protesters and the people who were protesting to be as large as it was. We did not think that this killing, this brutality of the young brothers and sisters who have fallen to the sword, have been shot down, we did not think that all these young folk, they say these are the millennials, that's fine. They have just galvanized in such a way that they're marching on each and every day. And we are taking back what we see them marching in France. We're taking back when we see them marching in Asia and Africa and all over the world. We're taking back when they're taking down some statues and pictures. We're taking back when the military says that the stars and stripes that Klan flag has got to go. It's got to go. Nobody has expected this kind of revolutionary protesting to take place. We're at a loss. Most of us did not expect it. We thought it was going to be the same old thing in the same old way. But it's not the same. It's truly different. And we have to give God the glory. And say, He's an on-time God. We say, may not come when you want Him, the way you want Him, but He is an on-time God. And so we're thankful today. We praise God for God is in this protesting. He's in this protesting. I was shocked. Give me 30 more seconds. I was shocked that I seen where they had a protest. I said, in Santa Barbara? I said, well, yeah, I guess I can feel that. But then I seen that they had one in Santa Maria. Then in San Luis Obispo. I said, oh my God. Then they had one in Simi Valley. I said, Jesus. Then they had one in Palo. I said, one in Camarillo. I said, my God. I expected one in Ventura. And I expected one in Oxnard. And I said, not Dallas. But I see what's happening. And people have their teachers and young folk. Black Lives Matter. Some say Black Lives Matter too. And they're talking about Gregory Lloyd. They're talking about Breonna Taylor. They're talking about Reuben. They're talking about all those people. And then we can see, even at the funeral service, I know that just like we were shocked when we seen Trayvon Martin's mother at the service. We were shocked when we seen Breonna Taylor's mother and family at the funeral. We were shocked when we seen Ahmaud Arbery, their family at the funeral. We were shocked to see just how far God has gone. God is in it. And if God is in it, you can't stop it. You can't stop it. God is making the way out of this. And all we have to do is thank God that He heard our call. But He didn't ask us how He was going to do it, but He said He was going to do it. So we just want to say hallelujah. Thank you, Lord. And we're going to see some changes in our lives. We wouldn't normally go out there marching. The housewives marching, the soccer moms marching. We got everybody marching. We got the military saying that we're going to take down the name off this base instead of just shocking us old folk. That's the way God works. Just when you think you know something, God comes in and sets you straight. So we're thankful to God. We're thankful to Jesus. We're thankful for the Holy Spirit. So for each and every one of us today, we just want to shout, glory, hallelujah. Thank you, Lord. You go get your Bibles out and you go into Psalms 30. I know you heard it many times. And the reason for it is anger lasts only a moment. But it's fair, it lasts a lifetime. Weeping may remain for a night, but rejoicing comes in the morning. We've been weeping for 400 years. Now, we're man,